Hi everyone, just a video today showing you what's new to the Galaxy S4 now that it's received its KitKat 4.4.2 update. This is a UK model i9505 and it isn't unlocked, it's locked to the Virgin mobile network, but it received the update on the same day as the unlocked models and the update wasn't any bigger. I think they deserve a lot of respect for the fact that Virgin don't change or mess with the bootloader in any way, and they don't install any of their own software over what Samsung have done. It's the update straight from Samsung with no delay. They've realised that they'll retain more customers like me if they can get the update out quicker and don't take up some of your precious memory with their stuff. The only app they give you is actually the app telling you how many minutes and things you have left, so this is in no way a paid endorsement from them, but Virgin, if you're watching, maybe you could give me a little something. But anyway, if not, check them out. I think they're the best network. So we're going to start off, I'm just going to check the Android version, just so you know I'm not lying. Got the K. Android 4.4.2 KitKat with the candy case Easter egg. Still prefer jelly bean, to be honest. I loved flinging the jelly beans and trying to get them all off the screen before more came and everything. I don't know, it was kind of fun. With this you just have to sit back and watch and maybe do a couple of presses. It's not going to come up now, but interestingly, a couple of times that I've been in here on the S4 and on the Nexus 7, I've seen a key lime pie icon come up. So you wonder how last minute the change of name was that they didn't manage to remove that out of it. I mean, it could be just a bit of fun saying yes, it was originally going to be called that, or maybe they changed it to KitKat at the last minute, who knows. But yeah, so I miss the jelly beans a little bit, but I still have them on my S2, so you know, I still have them there. So the first change in the S4 you really notice is the notifications bar. See here they've turned white. I've just noticed the flashing light here. That is actually invisible to the naked eye. I can only see it on the screen. I think that's the motion sensor. But yeah, that's actually not giving off any light to the human eye. Or it might be the but the light sensor might it. That's interesting. I've only just noticed how that comes out on camera. So I might as well, while we're in the settings menu, show you the changes here. Not a whole lot really. I've noticed actually my storage has gone up a little bit. I had 9.1 roughly gigs available. Now it's 9.25. So actually, after the KitKat update, I have a little bit more memory to play with. I mean, internal memory isn't a huge problem with me. I've got it balanced at about 3 gig left, and I have a big SD card in it. So yeah. More on the SD card later. There have been some issues around it. I haven't investigated it fully, but I don't think it's quite the big deal people have been saying. So we also have the default applications option now. Very useful because I like theming my phone heavily. So I have Action Launcher, I have Nova Launcher, I have Apex Launcher, I have the Google Now Launcher. If there's a launcher out there, I have it. Even the beautiful and not battery draining and very well made Go Launcher. That was sarcasm, by the way. If you're like Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory, just imagine me holding up an imaginary sarcasm sign for that last one, okay? Good, just to be clear. So we'll leave it on TouchWiz Home for now, because I'm going to show you the changes there, but then I'll show you how the Google Now Launcher responds to this device as well. Spoiler alert, it works well. Not much else has changed really. We have a few new options in the lock screen settings. I don't use a password, I prefer this. So you can set shortcuts now. You can have it as custom where you get the applications coming up at the bottom, or you can have it as camera. Personally, I prefer camera because I've got applications somewhere else, which is quite useful, and you'll see that in a minute. I keep unlock effect off because I've noticed sometimes it can slow down, it can lag a little bit, just loading the animation and drain the battery, so I keep that off. Still have multiple widgets. You can have wake up in the lock screen and wake up command and things like that. I don't bother. So it'll come out of there. Otherwise, it's basically the same. Nothing new in display settings, but the display does seem different. I think they've maybe refined some of the design. I'll show you notifications here. If you look, it can be hard to see, but there is a slight, very slight, it's not really coming out on camera, light blue tint to the font which wasn't there before, and they also changed the font. It's now the stock font that you get on Nexuses as opposed to Samsung's own, although that is still available in options, and it just looks a little bit more refined and clearer. This is also flatter as well. The button used to sort of have this 3D effect. Now it's colour shifted, it's a different colour, but it's flat. Again, I don't know how well it comes out on camera. The S2 seems to be having issues focusing at the moment, but it is more flat. They've changed this now. A little A comes up there if you put it on auto brightness. I suffer from migraines, so I always prefer to have it off and have a lower brightness setting than anything else. The colour on here is a bit more vivid. They've sharpened it up. There's sort of fewer pixels that you can see. It used to be a little bit pixelated around the bottom part of the green toggle. That's gone. Would have been nice if maybe they'd turned these white as well, but it's no biggie. I still prefer... There's a lot of things I do prefer about stock Android on my Nexus 7 and Motorola G, but the notification shade isn't one of them. I like having quick access to your 10 most used settings up here, so you don't constantly have to tap that just to turn Wi-Fi on and off. You've still got the one option up there, and without a third-party app. Other than that, it's basically the same, really. You can still do the dual finger swipe to get them all up. I want to correct a mistake. I've seen a few reviews of this build of Android for the S4, and almost every one of them has made this mistake. First of all, they say that wireless printing isn't included in this update. Some of them say that. It is. There it is. It's under more networks. Second of all, they say that the S4 is now capable of wireless printing because it has KitKat. That's nonsense. The S4 had HP Print Service and Samsung Print Service, both of them, built into their own menu in the Settings app since 4.2.2 at launch. The S4 did wireless printing before it was cool, before Google did. So, just to clear that, it doesn't now have wireless printing. So if you believe that and managed to miss it and you're still waiting on your 4.4 update, you can wireless print right now. It's there, just so you know. So it'll come out of there. Otherwise it's the same. There's a new option under NFC. We now have tap and pay, which is no use to me in the UK because Google Wallet isn't available, and I'm not very happy with my bank really. The bank won't let me use, my particular bank won't let me use NFC payment unless I have this cardboard sort of sticker with an NFC, with its own NFC chip printed on the back of my phone and stuck there, which is ugly. I don't want to do that. Why should I? I have an NFC chip built into the phone. That is what it is there for. Not Samsung's fault. It's more to do with UK banks and industries and things like that. So it's their fault, but that option is there. Hopefully it will change. And Google, I know it's very unlikely you're watching a video made by an 18-year-old student in England who you've never heard of, but if you are watching this, give me Google Wallet, please. I'm begging you. Actually, just give me everything that America has that England doesn't yet. Okay? We don't live in Narnia. You know, we can handle that software and that stuff too. Anyway. That's basically it in the settings. Unfortunately, developer options, no Dalvik and art switching. It's on Dalvik. Can't change to art. I know some people flashed the leaked test build from Sam Mobile. That did have it included, but unfortunately this final release doesn't have it. But you know what? I don't actually care because the phone feels a lot faster. Battery life while I'm in here. Back on 4.3 I was getting about 13 hours a day with 3 hours screen time. Now with 3 hours screen time I'm getting 14.5 to 15 hours, so about an hour and a half, 2 hours more on battery. So definitely improvement there. Now we might as well go into the launcher here. So the transparent status bar isn't really new to the S4, it always had it from launch. Again, it was one of the first things. HTC had it as well, I think. Again, Samsung and HTC did that before it was cool. They did it before Google did. But the white icons, don't know how well they're coming out on camera, but in person they stand out really well. And they sort of stand out, but still sort of blend with the wallpaper, which is incidentally off an Xperia Z2, I believe. And it really does just blend in and match, and it looks really nice. Otherwise, the launcher hasn't actually changed. It's exactly the same as 4.31, although it responds much quicker. Funnily enough, the most noticeable improvement, you notice how the Google Gallery as well, is the gallery. Still not as fast as the Google one, but ain't bad. Just to make it fair, I'll clear all closed applications so it doesn't have an unfair advantage. This is a cold start for the gallery. and it used to take about 30 seconds just after you clicked a folder to open it. It's much better. This was quite funny. I appeared in my own maths homework a little while ago. I didn't expect that. But yeah, all in all, it is much smoother than before. I still prefer the Google Gallery. A bit quicker. I prefer the overall design. Hello. I love that car. But it doesn't play GIFs and things like that. I mean, Google are trying to rule this app out now and use Google Plus Photos, which I do have. But I still like just a dedicated gallery app. It's a shame. I wish I could install the leaked Motorola gallery. Actually, that's quite nice, but I can't. But otherwise, it's exactly the same. It's a lot more fluid. There's no lag. It doesn't drop frames at all. I'm swiping through apps, going to widgets. There's no redraw. It doesn't get any blank icons coming up because it can't load the preview of the widget. It just, yeah, it doesn't really drop frames or anything at all. I think the S4 on KitKat is probably how it should have been at launch. I know it did have lag problems at first, but each update seems to eliminate more of it. And I would say basically 99.9% of the issues the S4 originally had, if any, have gone completely and utterly in this update. This is how this phone should always have been. Shame it wasn't like this at launch, but you know what, it was worth waiting for, because I honestly think, they say there wasn't a lot of hype around the S4 compared to the other phones. There wasn't, but I think if this phone had been like this at launch, there might have been. Gives me hope for the S5. I wasn't too keen on the S5, still not on the hardware design. But if the software can behave as well as this it is, then I think maybe Samsung have turned the tides. TouchWiz is not the horrible laggy beast that it used to be. Maybe a little bit bloated still, but not as much. I mean, even their Samsung apps, which I don't use, actually looks nice now. It actually has this sort of flat, hollow looking bar here. Doesn't have all these horrible mismatched colours anymore. It actually looks pleasant. So, well done. I think they are clearing up TouchWiz. I honestly do think that they're clearing up. Just in case you're confused, S Note was not included in the KitKat update. That's the leaked S5 APK which I have installed, which I will show you a bit later on if you're interested. And S Memo is still installed, but I've disabled it because I'm just going to use that instead. Works without hitch. So in terms of other changes, I think the lock screen is the best. I never used to like the Samsung lock screen. I'd use widget locker. I always preferred the lock screen on the Nexus 7 and the Motorola G, but now it's much nicer. I love the camera shortcut. Just swipe up from there. You can still have it, so you can have that and the swipe for camera, but I prefer something else. See, now when I swipe like this, I get my 12 favourite apps. The apps that I use the most. So that's quite handy to have there. If I go this way, I don't use any more widgets than that. I have the timely clock there. But the thing I like the most, now, as we know, KitKat devices get lock screen album art. It's not the same thing that 4.3 Jelly Bean had and that the iOS 7 has, where you just get a box in the middle with the album art and the name of the song. No, this is much more beautiful and more pleasant to use. So we'll open one at the moment. It's one of our most favourite albums. Available for 99p on the Play Store at the moment for all 25 tracks. So if you haven't checked out Bastille, I would if I were you. Turn that down. So now when I lock the phone and I'll wake it up again, the album art has changed. Now I actually prefer this version of lock screen album art to the Nexus, because on the Nexus you don't get, it's not shaded, they're just white back, forward and pause buttons, and they can be quite hard to see if it's a fairly light background on the album art, whereas Samsung have shaded them in and they're bigger and easier to press, and I just like that a little bit. Another hidden thing, I'd like to thank a friend on Google Plus for showing me this. It works on the Nexus as well. If you hold down on the button here, it brings up the scrubber for changing where you are in the song. Does that on the Nexus as well, and then you can hold back, get the title and album name and artist name, things like that. That also works with the TuneIn radio app. Works with Samsung Music. I've heard it works with things like Spotify and all that. I don't use those, but apparently it is universal. Any app can access it, any music player can access whatever bit of code is in the system to make that work. So that's nice to see. Otherwise, Samsung haven't really made many changes. Although there aren't many, the changes they've made I still think are significant, just because it does feel like a whole new phone. It feels probably twice as fast as it used to. The battery life is lasting longer. The screen seems sharper. I think they've messed around with the colour correction. It's not quite as oversaturated as it was before. It seems more reined in. Maybe they've finally got their gambit under control for the screen and they've reined it in finally, because I think AMOLED as a technology is much more advanced than LCD in terms of battery life and its uses. It just needs the software in there to back it up and to rein in that oversaturation, and I think they've done that. Otherwise, there are a couple of new things. If I go through here, one moment. I'm just going to turn it on, air gesture. I'll go to the TouchWiz internet app. There. You'll notice it automatically goes to full screen now. I was trying to download the S-Translator app from the S5. If we add a few more tabs here. I don't think this was there before, I've never noticed it, I only found this today. If I want to switch tabs, I can just do that. I've reached the limit I can do there. I can still scroll and things like that, sideways, and then you can switch tabs like that as well. I think that's quite cool. Obviously it did switch tabs then, but it looks the same because the tabs open to the same place. So I think that's new. I quite like that. Still an annoyance with quick glance in the lock screen. If you use the Samsung Music app, it comes up with the name and album title and stuff like that, so you know what song you're listening to. If you listen to Google Music, it just has a picture of the headphones in the notification section. It doesn't tell you what song you're listening to. They didn't add that in. Bit of a shame. Otherwise, the dial is exactly the same. Don't want to show phone numbers. Noticed some of the reviews I've seen are of the AT&T model of the S4, and they have this weird dark blue box with white buttons, and it looks really strange. This is what mine looks like. This is what the one on my S2 looks like, and I think it's better looking than the one I've seen on there, so I think that's strange. It doesn't have... People keep saying it doesn't have smart dialing. It does. I'm not going to show it now because it has for phone numbers, but if I want to ring Grandad, I hit 4 because it has G on it, 7 for R, and 2 for A, and then it's got GRA, and it brings up Grandad. So it's always had that. My S2 does that as well, so it's not quite as good, I'd say, as the stock KitKat dialer, but it's not as bad as people say. So that's pretty much the Samsung side of it done. I'm now going to show you just briefly, help if I hit the right menu, wouldn't it? I'm going to show you briefly what the Google Now launcher is like. I've been using it for a while in 4.3 as well, but even though the TouchWiz ROM supports transparency, that didn't until you got KitKat. So I'll just go over there now. Here we go. So this is the Nexus launcher, the Google Now launcher. Very smooth. Swiping into Google Now works really well. Bringing me... Oh, Taylor has won 2 CMC Music Awards. Hurrah. Telling me about the S4 upgrade out. Something here about Raj from The Big Bang Theory, one of my most favourite programmes. I am a little bit like Sheldon. My weather, things like that. And the hot phrase support is fine. Okay, Google, what time is it?
Time is 8:58 PM.
Finally, thank you, Google, for putting that in the UK. Only America had it at first, but now America and Canada also have hot phrase support, and it works very, very well. Okay, Google, open Google Plus.
Opening up.
There we go. So much quicker now it's on KitKat, and also loving the high quality HD voices. To be fair, the S4 always had that, something again Samsung did before it was cool with the high quality voices, but the Google Now, it never worked that well with Google Now. I could make it use the Samsung one, but it glitched when you tried it, so I'm glad Google have done it themselves and added high quality voices. So yeah, that's basically it. As for memory cards, people are saying that now in KitKat with a memory card, you can read and write to the SD card, but you can't move files or change a file's name. Now, if you use a third-party app, that is certainly true. So if I go to my GT6 folder, which has all my car pictures in it, on my SD card, and I hit rename, and I name it Waffles, alright, Walls, because I didn't read that properly, I hit OK, task failed. If I try and move it to somewhere else, into the Android section there, failed. However, if I go to the TouchWiz My Files app, because you have to remember this is installed as a system app, so maybe Samsung have given it more permissions, and I go to my SD memory card and I find download, I can go here, and I can rename it, and I can name it Waffles, or Wales. Okay, I need to teach this Waffles. Look, it has changed its name, despite the differences now with Google changing the KitKat code for SD cards. Oh, KitKat code. Try saying that 3 times really fast, it'd probably be hilarious. Downloads. It would have been really bad if I misspelled that on camera, wouldn't it? Thankfully I didn't. Okay, back to download. So that works. As for moving things, we'll move, say, YouTube uploads. Move it into SD card and downloads, and move here. One item moved. There it is. So actually, if you use the built-in Samsung My Files app, it's fine. Some people are saying about documents. I don't write many documents on here, so I'll have to test that out, and maybe I'll write a Google Plus post about it, or do a quick random video about it. But all in all, I haven't noticed any SD card problems. It's still doing exactly what I do. I can still move APKs to it and things like that, and download system dumps from other phones to the memory card and try and extract apps to see if they'll install and things like that. So for me, it's not been no biggie. It's been okay. So that's basically it. The camera's exactly the same. That's really all there is to say about the S4 KitKat.